I'm going to give you guys a brief overview of the corridor itself and some of the species, just for those of you who aren't familiar with it, and then we'll spend a little bit more time talking about what's recently been happening in the corridor. So the Dugdown Corridor is located in northeast Alabama and northwest Georgia. It's approximately 100,000 acres, and it represents one of the most significant opportunities for multi-state landscape level restoration of the mountain longleaf ecosystem, which is considered a globally imperiled species. The goal of the Dugdown Corridor is to connect the Talladega National Forest in Alabama with Sheffield and Paulding wildlife management areas in Georgia. So if you're looking at the map, you can see far left is the Talladega National Forest, far right is Sheffield and Paulding wildlife management areas. So to date, the Nature Conservancy has acquired 2,400 acres in this landscape. Note the two neon green areas there closer to Sheffield and Paulding wildlife management areas. That's what the Nature Conservancy has purchased and since sold back to the state of Georgia. And the Conservation Fund has acquired 10,300 plus acres. Note the two purple holdings in the center of the corridor there. So the Dugdown Corridor is actually a segment of a larger corridor that provides connectivity from the Talladega National Forest all the way to the Appalachian Mountains, and from the Talladega National Forest all the way down towards the Gulf. So if secured and properly managed, this will provide a critical migration corridor for species. We have climate resiliency data that indicates that the northern portion of the corridor, along with the southern portion that follows the Tallapoosa River, are both highly resilient to climate change. So unlike coastal longleaf, the mountain longleaf does not have sandy soils or wiregrass. So we aren't home to the gopher tortoise or the indigo snake. That said, the mountain longleaf ecosystem still represents one of the most significant opportunities to protect a forested corridor high in biodiversity for rare plants, bats, and other terrestrial species. So this slide shows a few of the imperiled species that would call the Dugdown home. The red-cockaded woodpecker on the top left is a keystone species currently found in the Talladega National Forest, with hopes of expansion into Georgia within the next decade. Bachman sparrow, the eastern fox squirrel, and the northern long-eared bat have all been documented within the Dugdown Corridor. The eastern fox squirrel numbers in Georgia have actually rebounded tremendously over the past 15 years following the reintroduction of prescribed fire to our forest in Georgia. TNC has a large partnership with Clemson University on tracking the northern pine snake throughout the corridor. Numerous adult females and males and several juveniles have been caught over the past few years and have provided key data on future management of the corridor. I think something that's really unique about the Dugdown is it not only protects a rare mountain longleaf ecosystem, but it also protects significant aquatic priorities. So the Dugdown Corridor contains nearly 45 miles of streams within portions of the Upper Coosa, the Etowah, and the Tallapoosa watersheds, all of which provide critical habitat to a range of imperiled fish, mussel, and other aquatic species. The three aquatic priorities that stand out within the Dugdown include Raccoon Creek, the Tallapoosa River, and Terrapin Creek. Raccoon Creek supports 43 native fish, 13 of which are endemic, meaning they're found nowhere else in the world, to the Mobile Basin or a smaller geographic area. Over the past 15 years, the Nature Conservancy has assisted partners with permanently protecting over half of the 35,000-acre Raccoon Creek watershed. Along the way, the Nature Conservancy has also completed 2 major aquatic connectivity projects and restored over a mile of the main stem of Raccoon Creek. Raccoon Creek is home to one of 3 key mountain longleaf ecosystem focal sites that exist in northwest Georgia. The Tallapoosa River anchors the southern border of the Dugdown Corridor and provides habitat to 1 federally listed mussel, the fine line pocketbook, and at least 8 state listed species. Unlike Raccoon Creek, the Tallapoosa is very undersampled. So a high priority for the Nature Conservancy as we move forward with this project is additional aquatic surveys to determine key conservation targets to help prioritize lands for protection and restoration. And Terrapin Creek is near the Georgia-Alabama state line, with the majority of the creek being in Alabama. Terrapin Creek is a critical habitat for numerous mussel species, a Coosa tributary, and a well-known recreational treasure for the public. So keeping the corridor from being further fragmented and employing proper land management over the long term will help protect the water quality and quantity in all three of these major aquatic priorities. So now that you know a little bit about the species and priorities, I want to go back to the map to discuss how Georgia and Alabama are approaching land protection within the corridor. In Georgia, the Nature Conservancy and the Conservation Fund are both working to move lands into state ownership and management for public use and recreation. So the two remaining large landowners within Georgia include Weyerhaeuser and Hancock TIR timberlands. So if you're looking at the map there, hone in on most of that dark blue that's scattered throughout the corridor and the red areas, and that's the two main timber investment management organizations that I'm talking about. So Weyerhaeuser and Hancock TIR. So the major issue in Georgia with both of these lands is they have severed mineral rights. The Georgia Attorney General's office currently interprets the Constitution to state that the state cannot own land with severed mineral rights. So this creates an outstanding issue statewide, but it certainly affects the Dugdown Corridor. On the Alabama side of the corridor, large landowners also include the Weyerhaeuser, Hancock TIR, and if you're looking at the kind of lighter teal area over closer to the Talladega National Forest, that's known as PFI Timber Fund. And there's a lot of potential to gain a lot of traction if all of these TIMOs are willing to sell. So Alabama Nature Conservancy has a good bit of experience in working with these or similar entities on purchasing lands with severed mineral rights, and they don't have the same issues to deal with the Attorney General's office on the Georgia side. So Alabama's looking to coordinate with the Talladega National Forest and their state government agencies to continue to focus connectivity between the Talladega National Forest and the Jamestown-owned land, which is the purple area that the Conservation Fund currently owns. So while land protection is definitely a key in making the Dugdown Corridor a reality, the on-the-ground stewardship is critical to restoring the mountain longleaf ecosystem. The Nature Conservancy is currently overseeing all of the longleaf shortleaf replanting efforts in the entire Dugdown Corridor, which mainly includes a focus on Sheffield and Paulding WMAs in Northwest Georgia, the Jones tracts that were acquired by TNC and sold back to the state in 2023. So again, if you're looking at the map, you can see Paulding and Sheffield there on the right. The two areas highlighted in red are the two parcels that the Nature Conservancy had purchased and sold to the state. And then all of the Conservation Fund's Jamestown tracts, which again are over 10,000 acres. So those are the highlighted green areas over closer to the Talladega National Forest and the state line. So the majority of these restoration efforts involve the conversion of historic upland loblolly pine plantations to more site-appropriate longleaf and shortleaf pine forest. So a big part of my job and additional staff within Northwest Georgia is coordinating with the Conservation Fund and Georgia DNR on all of these different harvests that are taking place across the corridor, and where we need to plant longleaf and where we need to plant shortleaf. In 2023, the Nature Conservancy oversaw a 300-acre timber harvest on the Jones tract. It was 150 acres of thinning and 150 acres of clear cut. And in 2024, we planted over 400,000 trees across the Dugdown Corridor. To date, TNC has been averaging replanting more than 500 acres a year within the corridor, which is really a significant amount of forest restoration on an annual basis. So prescribed fire is also critical to restoring the mountain longleaf ecosystem. The mountain longleaf survival depends upon frequent low-intensity fires to control the understory vegetation. The Nature Conservancy currently has one prescribed fire team that's funded by a National Fish and Wildlife Foundation grant. This team floats all of Northwest Georgia and Northeast Alabama and completes burns in the 3 mountain longleaf priority areas, which are the Dugdown, Berry College, and the Chattahoochee National Forest. The crew lead for this floating team is a 4-month seasonal position, and the team is actually a college-based internship team. So this year, the team is made up of students from Dalton State, Berry College, the University of West Georgia, and the College of Coastal Georgia. So students are all receiving course credit in exchange for the fire internship and are actually hired under a contract through the Southeast Conservation Corps, which is based out of Chattanooga. And one of our goals with this partnership with Southeast Conservation Corps is to kind of hope that the students are going to stay in the fire realm and stay really with the Nature Conservancy and partners in the Southeast. But we're also helping to line them up positions after this 4-month seasonal internship. So we have one student, the student that's from the College of Coastal Georgia, that's already following our TNC seasonal crew lead back out west to Idaho to continue her career in fire. And I think that's something important for me as the supervisor here in the Dugdown, is really growing our capacity here locally, but also getting folks more interested in conservation. So just an exciting piece about one of our crew members. So far this year, the crew has burnt approximately 4,000 acres within the Dugdown Corridor and over 7,000 acres in our other 2 priority mountain longleaf locations in Northwest Georgia. So 11,000 acres burnt to date is really an impressive number for a 4-month seasonal crew. So we have about 2 weeks left in our crew season, and my crews are at 2 different sites to date burning, and this week looks crazy for the rest of the week. So I imagine we're going to get over 12,000, 13,000 acres this season, which is really great for our mountain longleaf ecosystem. So while the Nature Conservancy has made great strides in the Dugdown the past few years, with all the growing management responsibilities with these new lands being added, we knew we needed to increase staff capacity in order to meet our growing stewardship needs and to continue to move effectively towards habitat management goals. So the Nature Conservancy partnered with Georgia DNR in the summer of 2023 to capture a 5-year, $1.6 million Pittman-Robertson grant. And the way the Pittman-Robertson grant works is if the Nature Conservancy and Georgia DNR can bring 25% of private funding to the table, then 75% of the grant is covered through what we call the Pittman-Robertson funds, which are essentially gun-related funds. So the funds flow back through Fish and Wildlife Service after each gun is purchased, and then the state can unlock the funds if they can come up with a 25% match. So when I say $1.6 million grant, that's the grant total. So the Nature Conservancy brought several $100,000 to the table with a Knobloch Foundation private grant, and then the state was able to bring all the Pittman-Robertson dollars, which brought us up to a $1.6 million grant, which basically is adding all this capacity to the Dugdown. So the Pittman-Robertson grant really allowed TNC to hire 2 additional full-time staff, what I'm calling a Dugdown manager. So if you're looking at the photo there, these are the 2 new staff members. Nathaniel Payne, or Nate Payne, is on the right, and he's our Dugdown manager. He came on board in November of 2023. And then on the left, we have our new Dugdown technician, who is Trevor Smith, and he came on board in February of 2024. So 2 very new staff members, both brought on board as part of this PR grant. The Dugdown manager, Nate, he oversees our land protection outreach, as well as overall management needs in the Dugdown, including prescribed fire activities and all of our tree plantings. Nate is working closely with Georgia DNR staff to implement work plans throughout the Dugdown wildlife management areas, and he works with landowners adjacent to our wildlife management areas to help ensure we're maintaining strong ties within the local community. Trevor, our Dugdown technician, is more focused on completing management work throughout the corridor and overseeing our seasonal crews. So the PR grant is also funding a Dugdown specific 3-person fire crew and a 2-person summer seasonal crew. So what this means is in 2025, the Nature Conservancy will have 2 fire crews in Northwest Georgia for the first time ever. And this is important because if you remember, I mentioned the fire crew this year, they have 3 priority areas in Northwest Georgia and Northeast Alabama. They basically start at the Georgia-Tennessee line, which is the Chattahoochee National Forest, continue past my office, which is in the Armurchie area and captures all of Berry College, and then all the way an hour plus south into what we call the Dugdown. And I can tell you our crew is well sought after. I have, 3 or 4 requests every day for the crew to go different directions. So it's somewhat stressful deciding who to let down on a daily basis. And I'm super excited about this Pittman-Robertson grant, adding a second crew for us where we'll have 1 crew that can really be focused on that Georgia-Alabama corridor, can help the Talladega National Forest and can help burn in all the WMAs. And then I'll still have the floating crew, which can really help increase our capacity on Berry College and within the Chattahoochee National Forest. So definitely huge steps forward, I would say, in the fire world for the Nature Conservancy in Northwest Georgia and specifically the Dugdown Corridor. The other thing I want to mention about this Pittman-Robertson grant, I kind of call this the people or the capacity grant. In addition to the people and the new crews, we're also have funds within the corridor to give us all the appropriate tools, equipment, fuel, and training to ensure everyone's safety and success. And one of I think the big hurdles as, a program area manager is finding funding for people to provide the capacity to do the things you need, but also finding all the money for all these really expensive things. So some of the items that this grant is covering that are huge expenses that basically we're using the vast majority of Pittman-Robertson to cover this year are a fire drone. That's like an $80,000+ expense and will be a game changer for us in terms of capacity and safety in Northwest Georgia. So that's really exciting. And then we have 2 new vehicles we recently purchased for our 2 new staff. We just bought a new large state-of-the-art UTV, which is a game changer for us and moving people and holding lots of water in the mountains. And then we'll be purchasing a new ATV in the next few weeks as well. So these are all pretty pricey items that really are critical to TNC for stewardship needs. They're very hard to fund typically through what I'll call our National Fish and Wildlife Foundation grants. When you get some of these items through federal means, then the federal side tracks those things for a long time. So very excited about being able to use the Pittman-Robertson dollars to help us move the needle in terms of our people and our things to be used across Northwest Georgia. All right, well, growing capacity is definitely a huge step in the right direction. We've also recognized that we need a facility to house all these staff and a shop to work on all of our existing and new equipment coming on board. So the Nature Conservancy has been collaborating with Georgia DNR and Paulding County to construct a facility on Paulding County owned land that's adjacent to Sheffield Wildlife Management Area, one of our major anchors in the Dugdown. So the Nature Conservancy actually hired an architectural firm in 2023 to fully design the entire burn crew headquarters. Those are the pictures you're seeing there on the slide. So the top right shows what the outside of the headquarters will look like. The bottom left actually shows the inside of the facility. So the facility itself is actually designed to house 3 fire crews. So both of the Northwest Georgia TNC fire crews will be based out of this facility, and Georgia DNR wants to house a private lands fire crew also out of this facility. So you see all those small rooms, those are essentially all the rooms for the fire crew. And then if you look on the right-hand side of that building, there's a large conference room and numerous offices. So all of these offices will have space for the existing staff within the Dugdown and offer opportunity maybe even for some growth. And then the conference room is to be used by both Georgia DNR and TNC for hosting classroom trainings for fire and other related things throughout the Dugdown Corridor. The picture on the bottom right shows the shop, which is really just a typical shop where we can pull in our UTVs, ATVs, and fire trucks and do all the equipment maintenance we need to do. So we definitely see the burn crew headquarters as something critical that the Nature Conservancy needs to complement all the capacity that we're adding. Where we are today is TNC, in addition to finalizing all of these architectural plans, we just initiated an environmental assessment of the burn crew headquarters site. It's actually 100 acres in Paulding County, and it's right on Raccoon Creek, which is one of those high priority tributaries that we have. And the environmental assessment is the last document that Georgia DNR needs in order to enter into a PR agreement for building the actual headquarters. That said, this is probably my most difficult project because the original building cost was estimated to be about 1.5 million from our initial architectural responses, which has been going on about 2 years now. And so TNC received estimated construction costs based on our final architectural designs, which is what's in front of you, a few weeks ago, and those actually came back at 3 million. So really it's double the cost of what we expected, which currently leaves us at an approximately 400,000 private fundraising shortfall to actually build the burn crew headquarters. So right now, the Nature Conservancy is awaiting word from Georgia DNR on how much funding they have available in this current fiscal year PR grant and what kind of private funding they would be willing to bring to the table. And then the current plan would be to enter into a final PR agreement for the construction once we have all of the funding for the facility in hand to match the actual PR grant dollars. And the way that the building is going to shake out is the Nature Conservancy will actually oversee the construction of the headquarters. And then the state, as in Georgia DNR, will take ownership of the building once they are built, with TNC maintaining a 50 to 100 year lease to allow us to house our fire crews and staff. But it will definitely be a shared facility between Georgia DNR and TNC. And we really see this burn crew headquarters as critical infrastructure for continued collaboration and integration of TNC and Georgia DNR staff for the corridor. The headquarters is providing the housing for our seasonal burn crews. It's allowing us to safely store vehicles and equipment. It's serving as an office, a classroom training space, and a shop for both the Nature Conservancy and Georgia DNR. So this is probably the one I would say out of all the slides that you've seen that we're still, jumping through hula hoops trying to figure out who's going to be in charge of what the exact funding looks like. So if you ask me today, what do I feel good about? What do I feel like, we need help with? I would say from a capacity standpoint, I feel like we're in really good shape between the TNC and DNR staff and these 2 additional hires and these additional crews being funded with Pittman Robertson grant, complementing all of the existing National Fish and Wildlife Service grant dollars we have. I feel really good about the people and the things that we have. Where our needs, it's definitely with that burn crew headquarters. How do we build out a facility that, has all the things that we need to help with our capacity, and then land protection. So if we truly want the Dugdown Corridor to be successful, if we want to connect Talladega over to Paulding and Sheffield, the Nature Conservancy, the Conservation Fund, and all the other partners have to be able to successfully come up with all the funds for land protection within the corridor. And obviously those big tracts that you saw, the Weyerhaeuser, the TIR Hancock, those are thousands and thousands of acres. We're talking big money with those big timber investment management purchases. And then obviously we're talking hundreds and low thousands in interconnecting all the big timber investment management groups together. So those would be the two big needs that I feel like we still need to fundraise for. We still need to think a lot about, think creatively on how to make those happen. But really excited to just kind of share an update on where we are with the Dugdown, and I'm super proud of how far we've come just in the past few years. And I think the Nature Conservancy has really making huge successes in the corridor every year.